Hello and welcome to another video where today I shall be ranking every 100th One Piece chapter. And before we begin, I'd just like to clarify that I will be showing the related anime episodes rather than the manga panels when talking about them, just so the video flows a bit better. So anyway, let's get on with it. In last place is chapter 300. Chapter 300 takes place during the Skypiea arc and starts off with Chopper tending to Wiper as Luffy and Nami arrive, and then they all catch up with Konis and her father. We then see Garn Full freeing slaves, and then Enel on his ship flying to the moon. Wiper wakes up, and it's revealed to him that the fighting is over and a party begins as the chapter ends. Now obviously I haven't talked about the other chapters on this list yet, but that was the shortest summary out of all of them because that is pretty much all that happens. But yeah, it's alright, just not that important or interesting, so let's move on. In 10th place, we have Chapter 900. Chapter 900 takes place at the end of the Whole Cake Island arc and starts off with Big Mom eating the wedding cake Sanji made as she falls to the floor because of how delicious it is, which Pudding is given full credit for. Oven boils the seawater around the Straw Hats, and Big Mom remembers her 6th birthday cake, and the chapter ends with what looks like the Straw Hats being blown to smithereens. Honestly, this chapter is not a lot. In fact, I'd honestly say that after reading that chapter and watching episode 875, I think the anime did it better. But that is for reasons you can't really convey in a manga chapter. Because in the anime, the song Big Mom sings while eating the cake is extended and plays over Germa fighting for their lives and the Straw Hats allegedly getting blown up, but who believed that anyway? Like, come on, this is One Piece. It would have been really funny if that's where One Piece ended though. But anyway, yeah, pretty average chapter there. Moving on to number 9. In 9th place, we have Chapter 500. Chapter 500 takes place during the Sabaody Archipelago arc and starts off with Duval arriving after the Straw Hats called for him because they need his help to get Kami back. We then see Chopper and Brook waiting for the others to arrive, and some men on flying fish pick them up. Luffy and Hachi go looking for Kami in the slave store to no avail. Robin then explains to Nami that 200 years ago fishmen were discriminated against, and Sabaody still has that culture. We then see the auction hall where Goatfowl Galore and Eustace Mid have already arrived. Law then flips Kid off like an absolute Chad, and Kami tells her captors Hatchin is going to beat them up as Rayleigh appears. This chapter is pretty eventful, but it's simply a setup to what's about to go down, so I can't really put it at much higher on the list, so moving on. In 8th place, we have Chapter 600. Chapter 600 takes place during the Return to Sabaody arc and starts off with Chopper running after the people who kidnapped who we thought was Robin as Usopp and Nami arrive and explain the fake Straw Hat situation. We then see fake Zoro and Sanji searching for real Chopper as they come across real Luffy. We then see the pirate gathering set up by the fake Straw Hats. Caribou then attempts to kill a Navy soldier as fake Luffy shows up and fake Zoro and Sanji deliver real Luffy to him. We then see the Navy interrupt Brook's concert as they've realised he is a wanted pirate because his manager ratted him out. Brook announces Luffy is alive and begins to play his last song. Usopp and Chopper check out Frankie's new upgrades on the Sunny as Nami and Robin arrive. Rayleigh then shows up and explains the current situation with fake Straw Hats, and the chapter ends. I think the highlight of this chapter, and the only thing keeping it above 500, is definitely Brook's concert, because when he tells his band to help him perform one last song, despite the Navy threatening to shoot them, is good enough. But then his fans start fighting back just so they can hear one last song, which just shows how dedicated they are to Brook. Anyway, the rest of the chapter is just kind of reuniting and setting stuff up, so let's move on. In 7th place, we have Chapter 700. Chapter 700 takes place at the end of the Punk Hazard arc and starts off with the news spreading about Doflamingo leaving the Seven Warlords. Law then talks to Doflamingo over the phone about their deal with returning Caesar. The Alliance has lunch together as Kinemon explains what happened to his group when they were heading for Zou, and Law tells him he is also planning on heading to Zou. We then see the government's reaction to the depleting number of warlords, and they reveal Buggy is now a warlord. Treble hits on Baby 5 but reveals he was joking. Doflamingo reveals to his subordinates that he has the Flame Fruit, and the chapter ends with the Alliance arriving at Dressrosa. Quite a bit happens in this chapter, like Doflamingo leaving the Seven Warlords and revealing he has the Flame Fruit being the most prominent, which are quite important for the next arc. but I can't really put it much higher because it's yet again set between two arcs, which means it's incredibly uneventful. But what we did get was very important, which is why chapter 700 gets 7th place. In 6th place, we have chapter 400. Chapter 400 takes place during the Enies Lobby arc and starts off with the sea train ploughing through Enies Lobby, which sends Spandam into a panic as he drags Robin away and gives CP9 the green flag to fight the Straw Hats and Lucci to protect him. He then turns an elephant into a sword, and we see the Straw Hats get confronted by Fukuro, who explains that each CP9 member carries a key, one of which unlocks Robin's Sea Prism stone cuffs, and then runs away. The Straw Hats then split up to go fight each CP9 member, and we then see Spandam escorting Robin as Luffy searches for them. We then also see Franky searching for Cola as Fukuro appears, blocking his path. Usopp finds a CP9 member sleeping next to a key, Nami comes head to head with another member, Sanji gets cornered by another, and Zoro confronts another as the chapter ends. This chapter is pretty good, but guess what? It's just a setup again. But there is a good reason this chapter is above the others. And that's because it's Enies Lobby, and Enies Lobby is amazing, so deal with it. In 5th place we have chapter 800. Chapter 800 takes place at the end of the Dressrosa arc and starts off with Luffy turning down Bartholomew's proposal to create the Straw Hat fleet. However, Bartholomew decides to give the speech anyway. Fujitora drops the rubble on top of the fleet chasing them, and the Straw Hat fleet is made somewhat official. We then see Fujitora thank the Straw Hats, and Rebecca and Kairos having a sweet little moment together. The chapter ends with the narrator declaring that the Straw Hat fleet will eventually cause a great incident of historic proportions. Very interesting. Now, I originally had this chapter at 10th, but as I was writing about it, I realised how good it really is, because it's quite pivotal to the story going forward, stuff we haven't seen yet. We get to see Luffy be Luffy and Zoro be an alcoholic, and the part where everyone else comes together to pledge their loyalty to the Straw Hats, despite their proposal being rejected, is really good too. The last thing being Fujitora's decision to drop the rubble on the fleet attacking the Straw Hats, which finishes his character arc in Dressrosa in a really nice way, so overall, it's a really solid chapter. In 4th place we have chapter 200. Chapter 200 takes place during the Alabasta arc and starts off with most of the Straw Hats and Vivi trying to find the guy who's going to set off the explosion, but they get ambushed. However, Zoro and Sanji decide it will only take 2 seconds to beat them, and Usopp, Nami and Chopper and Vivi go on ahead with 10 minutes on the clock. We then see Luffy confronting Crocodile again and declares that if Crocodile is one of the 7 warlords, then Luffy is the 8th. Luffy throws a punch, but Crocodile catches it and sucks the moisture out, so Luffy catapults himself over Crocodile and has a drink. The two fight for a bit until Luffy drinks the entire barrel of water and starts spitting bubbles at Crocodile, and the chapter ends with him landing a Gum Gum Bazooka. Finally! An action-packed chapter, and a pretty good fight for pre-time skip, because this is one of the best Alabasta moments. One of the things that makes me love One Piece so much is how it manages to combine goofy things with serious things, without derailing the tension. And while Whole Cake Island is basically the definition of this, it also crops up in moments like this, and I feel like watching One Piece made me remember that fictional media is meant to have fun with, and doesn't have to make a whole lot of sense as long as it works well. In 3rd place, we have Chapter 100. Chapter 100 takes place during the Logetown arc, and starts off with a shot of Dragon, then Buggy telling his crew that they are going to beat up Luffy and then leave, but Smoker captures them. We then see a couple of other members of Buggy's crew at the Going Merry, disappointed with the rain because their mission is to burn down the ship, but Usopp and Nami show up to stop them. We then see Zoro, Sanji and Luffy running away from Navy soldiers trying to get to the ship. Sanji then spots a woman, who calls out Zoro's name. Zoro recognises her, and she threatens to take Wado Ichimonji away from him. Zoro clashes with her and tells Luffy and Sanji to go on ahead. Zoro swiftly defeats Tashigi, but lets her live, to which she assumes because she's a woman. But Zoro snaps and tells her she reminds him of his dead friend. We then see Smoker confront Luffy, who quickly realises he cannot make contact with Smoker. However, Dragon intervenes. The Straw Hats reconvene at the ship. Smoker announces he will chase the Straw Hats through the Grand Line, and Tashigi joins him because she wants to capture Zoro. Buggy has the same idea as Smoker. The chapter ends as the Straw Hats then announce their dreams and head to the Grand Line. Chapter 100 is an absolute classic, and it makes Smoker look so threatening, even though he really isn't once Haki is introduced. We also see Dragon for the first time, which is very cool, and Buggy's shenanigans never fail to entertain, so yeah, very good chapter. In second place, we have Chapter 1100. Chapter 1100 takes place during the Egghead Island arc in Kuma's backstory, and starts off with Kuma getting the conditions for Bonnie's freedom explained to him, including giving up his humanity, to which Kuma cries tears of joy realizing Bonnie can be saved, and he'd sacrifice anything for her. Kuma demands that Bonnie is held in the church until she is cured, and we then see Vegapunk complaining about needing multiple of himself, obviously referencing one of his future inventions. There is then a page of Kuma, Bonnie, Kizaru, Sentomaru and Vegapunk eating pizza together, and they all do the Nika dance. Alpha rocks up, Kuma thanks Bonnie for being born, we see a bunch of characters react to the news of Kuma being a warlord, and the chapter ends with Kuma sending a letter off to Bonnie. Very powerful chapter. That part of Kuma crying after hearing his terms to save Bonnie, only for it to be revealed that they're tears of joy as he exclaims how thankful he is that he can save Bonnie, is such an emotional moment. And when he thanks Bonnie for being born, to which he is oblivious as to why he said that, as well as the fact she will never see him again, or wasn't supposed to, I guess. But yeah, chapter 1100 is such a good chapter, but do you know which chapter is better? Why, of course that would be Chapter 1000 in first place. Chapter 1000 takes place during the Wano arc and starts off with Luffy and Zoro attempting to reach the roof. We then see Yamato give Momonosuke his father's journal, and Yamato reminisces about Ace. Flashback to Ace and Yamato talking about Luffy, and Yamato gives Ace his Viva card. Luffy then reaches the rooftop and Kaido and Big Mom try talking down to him, to which he ignores and goes over to Kinemon, who asks if Luffy can carry the land of Wano on his back, and then totally dies right there, and this isn't a really dumb fake out death at all. Luffy tells Law to send the injured samurai downstairs, and we see some flashbacks about the samurai as Luffy whacks Kaido with Red Rock, and the chapter ends with Luffy declaring he will surpass them and become king of the pirates. What did you expect to be first place? Do I even need to explain? This is honestly one of the best One Piece chapters so far, which is why it concludes my ranking of every 100th chapter of One Piece. If you enjoyed this video, I ranked every 100th episode a while ago if you haven't seen that. Also subscribe because I'm almost at 12k, which is epic. Also like the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.